Mr. Trump have what it takes to win over young black voters, especially in the handful of battleground states like Georgia. Joining me now is Janelle King. She's the co-founder of Let's Win for America Action. Her group aims to bring a conservative message to minority communities who traditionally vote Democrat. And as former deputy state director for the Georgia Republican Party, she knows the battleground state well. Thank you for joining us on Scripps Newsline. The Trump campaign trying to use, his felony conviction now to reach voters. And we heard Trump himself just there kind of allude to that before with the mugshot moment. How does the campaign toe the line of addressing a criminal justice issue without stereotyping and therefore disrespecting an entire community potentially?
Yeah, that's a great question. I personally am not a fan of that type of rhetoric, only because it speaks to a very small subset of our community where we, as you stated earlier when the show began, we are not a monolith. And so I do want him to broaden that conversation. However, there is a population of our community that does understand how it feels to go through some of the things that he's going through, and that he can connect with them in that way. And I think he should. But, this started happening before President Trump's race for re-election. A lot of this started happening during COVID. A lot of this started happening during the time when we saw the economy starting to fall off, where Black people were now saying, hold on to the Democratic Party, that, you said that we could trust you. You said that your policies were good for us. But what I'm seeing is that my gas prices and my food costs is much higher than the income that I'm bringing in. And this is a problem for me. So then the gatekeepers, such as Clyburn, are saying, this is something that we need to address. But I think we can definitely focus in on it as Republicans.
Okay, and you mentioned economy there. So what issues does the Trump campaign think it could appeal to younger Black voters on in 2024?
Well, you know what? I think that he needs to just continue to talk about the things that matter to all Americans. And that's what I think it's always been the case. When he continues to talk about the economy, talk about education, what's happening with this migrant situation is something that's really hitting the Black community hard, particularly our lower income communities, because they're having to contend with these people who have come here without being asked to come here, but now sucking up a lot of resources. So this is a problem, particularly in the Black community. So I think he can continue to focus on those issues and those issues that matter to everyone.
So how does focusing on those issues that as you spelled out square in battleground states like Georgia? Because at the end of the day, I'll sound like a broken record, but it's going to come down to margins.
Well, you know what? This is where he can lean on Black conservatives, which I see him doing, because we understand our community very well. We understand the dynamics of our community. And what I like to say is that you'll be hard pressed to find a Black conservative who's not grifting, but actually cares about the community. You'll be hard pressed to find them say things like, you should be a Republican. We're not pushing for anyone to be a Republican. We're advocating for you to vote Republican. That means that if today this is what we have done, we are showing you that we have policies that will help make your life better, vote for us today, and then hold us accountable, hold us to it. This is the power of the swing vote, when you're not seeing 94% of one voting block going into one direction. It doesn't need to sit on any side. It needs to stand in the middle and be able to swing if necessary, allowing each party to court you and allowing each party to show you what they can bring to the table. I have confidence that the Republican Party will win every time.
Okay, well, let me bring up an instance that has happened when you mentioned, relying on conservative, folks to really go out and effort that vote. I think it was Representative Byron had recently held an event in Pennsylvania, a battleground state, basically stumping for former President Trump. And in that, he had said, basically expressing nostalgia, if you will, for the Jim Crow era. But he was talking about what he calls, quote unquote, when the Black family was together. So he's making his point about family values and what that was at that time, but hearkening to a period of time that was very painful for, African Americans in this country. So, I mean, how do you square that when you got somebody out there saying things like that?
Well, because I know exactly what he's talking about, I can confidently say that you have to understand the context in which he's speaking. The fact of the matter is Black family and family values were the strongest during that time. Now, it may be because of the fact that we were forced to be in a position where we all had to support each other. But either way, you can't deny the fact that families are now broken more so than they were at that time. You can't deny the fact that drug abuse in the 80s and the crack epidemic actually killed a lot of our families and really broke down the structure. So when you have that in mind and you know that, that's what he's referring to. You can't deny it. And I think it's because we were pushing education, which was a cultural priority at that time.
Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, rumored VP pick, recently pledged $14 million to reach out to voters of color. But he told reporters, quote, "There's no doubt that African-American men are wide open for a political shift of partisanship." So how will these efforts be enough to have them cross the aisle, or as you say, vote Republican, not to be Republican, but vote Republican, rather than just actually sit this election out?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, Black men right now are looking for a home. They feel as though they have been completely pushed to the side in the Democratic Party. And I believe that's the case as well. Black men are not supporting this transgender push that's advocating for men to be in girls' sports and girls' bathrooms. Black men are not here for the push that basically says that our young men are only as good as an athlete or some form of an entertainer. They want to make sure we open up industries to the Black community, to our young people. So there are several issues, and then we can go into economics, and that's another angle where Black men have always said that they want to see more and they want better opportunities. So I'm looking forward to see what we do and how we can pull in more Black men.
Quickly here, for the people who are saying former President Trump, you know, doesn't have a squeaky clean record when it comes to accusations and stories around how he is with Black Americans, his handling of, you know, the Central Park Five going back to New York, or accusations of discrimination in the past. Why should Black voters maybe push past those allegations and all of those stories and vote for Donald Trump?
Because the economy is failing, and you need someone that's going to get us back on track and allow us to be in a position where we can educate our kids, where we can feed our families and live a good life. So if you can't choose based on character, pick based on capability.
Janelle King, co-founder of Let's Win for America Action. Thank you so much for your time and your insight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.